So here I started up Sublime Text, and here we see the basic architecture of stuff. So in the root folder I have my server.js file, which is this entry point for the application. So in here I start up Express and I include my version for the API, which I'll talk about later. And you can see that I set the body parser to 50 megabyte. And I'm using CORS because I want to have the ability to use it outside localhost. And then I use my version 1 of my application. And I also use Mustache in order to render HTML files, which we'll also look at later. And I have a public static folder called public, which is this one, that will be accessible outside the application. And currently I just have an image in there. And I also have the database folder, and in here I have the schema for my MongoDB. So you can see I have the user schema just currently. I don't have anything else. And I have a maintenance file with a couple of bash files. And if you don't know what this does, don't mind. It's just for administrating the database. So with this bash file I can export my database, and it includes a timestamp, and then it zips it and removes the old folder. And I can also import that file, or any file I like actually. And then I have a seed script for my users. You can also extend this, of course, and you should do that. So, and then I have my node modules, and then the public folder which we looked at. And then I have a folder called views, which is my HTML views. So in here I have HTML, and all of the other logic is located in v1 folder, which is short for version 1. So as you have other versions and want to keep backwards compatibility, you can create, for example, a v2 folder and start working with that. And then you have to include that version in your API, like I've done with the version 1. And how this works is, if Node.js finds anything called index.js in a folder, it'll automatically include that. So, and that is what is happening here. When I include my version 1, I include the v1 folder, and then I have an index.js file that bootstraps the whole version 1. And this is quite complicated, so I suggest you take a couple of minutes to look into how this, what actually happens in the index.js file. And the other important file is the endpoint.js, which specifies all my endpoints for my version 1 of the API. And you will be working pretty much in this file, I guess, when you implement new endpoints. And in my middleware folder I have my middlewares, and in my helpers folder I have a helper function, and in my handlers folder I have currently all the API logic, which is what I talked about in the previous recording, that you should pull this out until your own structure, your library structure. So currently I have documentation, which we'll look at later, and then I have a user handler for handling register of new users, and a couple of helper methods, create a token, login. So I don't have a lot of logic, but all the architecture is in place, which is kind of important. So that is the basic structure of things. And if we look at the root folder again, we can see that I have my package.json file, nothing strange going on here. And I have two files ending with JSON. And you won't have this first one because it's git ignored in here. And that is because I have sensitive data, like for example, the username to my MySQL database, and password and URL, and my MongoDB database name. And I have tokens, and I have how long that token is valid. And what I do is that and this file is not git ignored, so you should change it to something that you like in here. And when you've done that, you should rename it to an env.json instead. So you don't have this one, it's just for you getting started. So that's the basic structure, and see you in the next video.